So, welcome to part 4. So, the majority of the model has now got its base coat on. I've decided to go with this metallic pewter acrylic paint. I feel that that's a pretty good match to how the ship looks in the TV show. So, today we're going to be looking at the lighting for the nacelles. So, the plan is to light the kind of chiller grills and the exhaust, and there's a wee port on top. Light them up in blue. LED strip tape inside the nacelle to light up the chiller grills and the wee port thing, and then there's a exhaust at the back where we'll be mounting a little blue LED to shine through that. I think that there's some white lights on the nacelle somewhere, but I need to look into that. I think there's maybe some on the sides. So, as been discussed before, I'm going to be simulating the spinning of the buzzards with LEDs rather than with a motor, because even the kind of quietest motor in the world, if it's switched on in a quiet room, you can still hear the motor, and that's quite annoying. So I think spinning simulated LEDs is the way to go. So the way I do this and the way that I'm doing any of the kind of animated lights in any of these things is with little Arduino boards. There's better and fancier ways of doing this, but the Arduinos they're really cheap and they're easy to use, which means I don't need to learn any more electronic stuff than I already know, and I don't need to solder really tiny things because I'm not good at really tiny fittings. They come with drawbacks. They have a limited amount of output on them. Each they have a set amount of pins on them, and each pin has to be connected to a separate light if you want the lights to do different things. So as a result of that, I'm having to use 3 of them in the board, in the ship, sorry. One to light the saucer section, one per nacelle. And as I said in I think the previous part, that the Arduinos are fairly big, so whilst one of them will fit in the saucer section fine, they won't fit in the nacelle, so they're going to have to go into the base of the model, which is not a problem. It just means there's going to be a lot of wires running from the nacelle down the pylons through the secondary hull down into the base, but that's fine. So the little piece that sits in the kind of buzzard scoop bit already has holes in it, and the things I'm using are called SMDs, which are basically just really tiny LEDs, and they'll all actually fit in the hole quite nicely. I've tested that, and they fit in perfectly. So the idea is that they'll just all sit in there, and then the rest of the assembly will go on top. The SMDs are orange, and then there's a clear glass that goes on top of that you're meant to paint the blades onto, and then there's the clear glass that goes on the outside of the kit. Probably both of those clear glass bits will be painted red, so the combination of the kind of red glass and the orange SMD will kind of look like it does on the show. So the first thing that I tried was to light each of the lights in sequence, which it didn't really produce the kind of result that I'm looking for. And I tried lighting 2 lights at the same time, opposite each other, and it looked much more like they were spinning. I might put another orange SMD right in the middle, and that might kind of enhance the look of something spinning. But I'll have a play with that before putting it all together. That LED would obviously just be on the whole time. Let's have a wee look at what the Arduino is actually doing. So at the start of the script, we can see that where it says int and pin number, this is telling the Arduino that we're going to be using these pins. So the Arduino has 12 kind of separate usable pins, and we're using 8 on this board. They're all lined up next to each other, which is why they're not all in sequence, because sometimes it's easier to solder them with gaps in between, because it's still quite tiny. We have the int timer, which tells the Arduino that we'll have a timer that's set to 40 milliseconds, and by doing the integer timer bit there, then all we need to do is change the value of timer, and it changes the time for everything. Later on in the script I could have put the time in there, but then I'd have to change that every single time. So next digital write pin number is high, and that's essentially telling them that this pin turn the LED connected to on, so high it is on. And as you can see, there's 2 pins getting turned on, so that's 2 of the lights going on at the same time. And the next bit we have is the delay, so that's the 40 milliseconds. This is followed by digital right low, which is telling the Arduino just to turn the lights off, so high is on, low is off. Then there's another short delay, and then the next 2 sets of light go on. And then this just repeats itself over and over and over. As long as there's power going to the Arduino, this script runs in a loop. So, 2 lights on, off, 2 lights on, off, repeated like that. And then this just repeats itself over and over and over. As long as there's power going to the Arduino, this script runs in a loop. So, 2 lights on, off, 2 lights on, off, repeated like that. So for the blue lights at the chiller grill, I'm just going to be using blue LED tape positioned in the same side as the chiller grill. So the idea is that the tape is above the chiller grill, will bounce off the back of the nacelle and then reflect out of the chiller grill. This avoids, if it was on the back wall, you would see the kind of hot spots over where the LEDs on the tape are. So by having it above and bouncing across, it kind of avoids that. What I've also done is that the clear plastic bit that goes in the chiller grill, I've painted that with a very, very fine coat of the base colour. The idea is that when the light's on, you'll never actually see that, but when the lights are off, the clear plastic bit blends in a bit clearer with the nacelle, so it doesn't look so much like a toy, essentially. Finally, for the exhaust, on the show, when you see the ship from behind, the kind of end cap of the nacelle has all these tiny little ports in it that are all lit up blue. So what we're doing is there's going to be a blue LED in the back of it pointing out through that exhaust. The actual piece is a clear piece, so it's going to take a lot of light blocking to make sure that the light isn't leaking. I think the idea is that the bit that connects to the kind of round bit, that will be painted on the inside black, just the kind of round bit of it, to prevent light coming out, and then all the paint will be going on the outside of the piece. It's a slightly darker shade than the hull colour. Multiple coats of paint on that so that all the light's completely blocked, and then going back in with my little pin vise and just drilling the paint off of each of the little ports, with the hope that the blue light will then shine through just the ports and will look like it did on the show. In the next video, we're going to be looking at the lights for the saucer section and the secondary hull, and how they're all going to get tied together. So see you then. Bye.